I just woke up and I'm going to talk about my dream while the details are still somewhat fresh. So to, touch on most of my past videos, if you've seen any of them, the majority of the dreams I talk about here take place in recurring dreamscapes. So the dreams themselves are not exactly the same, but the place where the dream occurs, it recurs. So, in the dream I had last night, it took place in a strip mall that I was working in. And this strip mall was inside of a town I used to live in real life, but don't anymore. And for the record, I've never worked in a strip mall before in my life, let alone this one. And I'm in the actual town in real life. This strip mall, at least the way it is in my dream, doesn't exist. There is a strip mall type building in the physical place in reality, but it's way different. Way different. A lot smaller in reality. In my dream, the strip mall is large. On the one end of it, there's a really large grocery store. And I've traveled a lot in my life across the U.S. So in the area of the U.S. I live, we do not have any Albertsons stores, but I've been to Albertsons plenty of times. And I swear in my dream it's an Albertsons, which is it's just funny to me because there's none of those types of grocery stores in this part of the country. But I swear that's what that store is. So big ass grocery store on one end of the strip mall. And then on the opposite end of the strip mall, there's a secondhand, like a used clothing store. And I want to be clear, it's not a vintage clothing store. It's a straight up used clothing store, which is where I work. And then there's some other stores in between those two in the strip. I don't know what they all are, but I do know in Dreamland I'm friends with the other store workers. And the other interesting thing, and I don't know if this is just how strip malls operate. I've never worked in retail, so that's telling. I've never worked in retail. I've never been a waitress. I always worked more toward the computers. Like, give me a pile of stuff to do in a dark room away from all the people, and I'll do that, and I'll be happy. So I feel like it's really funny in my dreams. I often dream of working in retail. This is not the only store I dream of working at. It's strange. So anyway, in the strip mall, all of the storefronts are connected via doorways, sort of within the center of each store. So I would expect, like, if strip malls have connected corridors, like if I was planning out the architecture of a strip mall, I would put that corridor in the back end near where all the warehouse areas would be. I wouldn't put it like right in the middle of the store. But this particular strip mall is set up so that people can go into one store, like, for example, the thrift store, buy what they want, and then instead of having to go outside, they just go through a little doorway sort of in the middle wall, up the shared wall, but it's the center of the shared wall, that can then go into, like, the next store. I swear the next store over might be a Blockbuster, so maybe this universe doesn't have the internet and DVDs. Actually, there's other dreams that take place within what I think is this same dream land. And if it is the same place, the same dreamscape, definitely doesn't have internet the way we do now. So there's that. Pretty sure it's a video store next to the thrift store anyway. And then after the video store, I think it's some kind of a restaurant. But again, like, my memory's murky. In this dreamscape, I have dreamt of this particular strip mall 3 or 4 times. This is just the most recent dream. I always work at it. I always work in the thrift store. So Again, I've never actually worked in retail in real life. I do enjoy thrift stores. And I'm not a person who likes shopping, but thrift stores are cool because you never know what you're going to freaking find. It's like an adventure every time. Maybe that's why I dream of these places. Anyway. Last night in my dream, it was closing time. But closing time was earlier than you would expect. It was like 7 o'clock, which I live out in the boonies. This is like a northern state, and things are known to close early. But like 9 is more like a normal, like if something closes at 9, that's not like surprising. 7 o'clock is surprising for a closing time. And it wasn't just my shop that was closing at 7. The whole strip mall was closing at 7. So I don't know if there was some other thing going on. But my boss in this store that I was working at, I did not own it. I was just a worker. And my boss, who normally does closing, couldn't be there for whatever reason. So she was counting on me to close. It was my first time closing. I didn't really know what to do or where everything was. Like, basically, I knew people needed to get out of the store and I needed to lock the door. So I got the people out of the store, but then I couldn't find the key to lock the door. And so I was like, what do I do? And so I used the little connecting, adjoining doorway in between retail spaces. And I went next door to the video store and I asked the guy who was working there. And then he came into the store and he showed me where the key was. But in the time it took me to do that, people walked in the store and they're like getting into things. And I walked back in and I was like, what are you doing? We're closed. You need to leave. And so we shooed them out and I locked the door and I put the key back and I went to go turn off some lights or do something else. And as I was doing that, more people came to the door to the store, which thankfully was now locked. And they were trying to like angrily pull it and it wouldn't open because locked. And then the woman who was out there was like doing something on her phone. So they must have had some kind of internet because I shouted toward her, not like yell, but like just enough so that she would hear me, like, we're closed. And she like looked up surprised and she's like, well, I guess I'm not going to leave you a nasty review then. And I was like, okay, cool story. And then the dream basically just ended. That was the dream. But I just don't understand why I keep dreaming of these recurring places that don't exist in the real world, in my real world at least. That strip mall doesn't exist in the town where I dream of it. Video stores don't really exist anywhere anymore. I haven't worked in retail. I haven't done a closing time at a place like that since I was in high school. I worked at a laundromat when I was in high school. And I used to have to close the laundromat. And that was in the 90s, for the record. So it's been a while. But I dream of this particular town, but it never is as it actually is in real life. Which maybe is a good thing, because in real life, the town has really suffered in the past 10 years. Particularly in the past 3 years. There's been a huge rise in homelessness. You can guess why. What might have happened in the past 3 years to change things a bit. But I dream of this town. I dream that I still live there. I dream that I still work there. Sometimes I work in the same industries that I used to work in that town. But even within the industries that I did actually work within in real life when I lived in this place, sometimes I dream of working at those particular businesses, but they're 100% different. They're 360 degrees different. They're so different. I wonder how my brain can even... I know I joke that these are alternate universe dreams, but sometimes I wonder if I'm really joking, because why do I keep going back to these places where the places don't change apart from the passage of time? I hop right back into my lives when I'm there. I don't know.